We have three chairs.
All right, everybody, we're going to wait to log on, then we'll get started here about 7:05. Thank you.
What do you think? You ready to get this party started?
Let's do it. All right, everybody, I think we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, let me thank you all for coming tonight. We have been looking forward to this evening for a long time. We're certainly excited to discuss the future of DeKalb Mall, and based on the phone calls and emails that I've received since the notice first went out about this meeting, there are a lot of people in the community that are excited about it too. Let me start with some introductions. First of all, my name is Den Webb. I'm a land use attorney with Smith, Gambrell, and Russell here in Atlanta. To my right is Herbert Ames. Herbert is a senior vice president with Edens. He's in charge of the Southeast region. Just off the screen to my left is Marguerite Norton. She's a development associate at Edens, and she's going to be running our PowerPoint. On the call are Jim McKinney, who's a vice president of construction with Edens. I believe Bill Caldwell, who is an architect as well as the lead design and construction consultant with Edens, is also going to join us tonight. We've invited the engineers from Kimley Horn, Alex Hensley, and Emily Flood, as well as Alex Brock, who's here in the room with me and is my associate. We are unfortunately confined to doing this presentation via Zoom. We'd much rather meet in person, but that's not possible now under the circumstances. And I know there's a chance we may have an awkward moment tonight. You know, we're doing this on the fly. We'll handle things the best we can. I've got two IT experts in the room with me, Stephen Ty and Dustin Quinteros, who are here to help us with problems that may encounter, but we'd ask for your patience as we move through this because we're doing the best we can. The plan this evening is to essentially make a presentation on who Eaton's is and what the plan is for the DeKalb Mall site. We're going to ask you to put your questions in the Q&A function here. As you may know, Zoom has both a chat function and a Q&A function, and we were concerned about going back and forth between the two to try and capture all the questions. So we've disabled the chat, and we'd ask that you put all your questions in the Q&A format. We're going to stop periodically and try and deal with the questions as we move through the application. But for those who don't feel like they got the question answered tonight or think of a question tomorrow, we're also going to provide an email address at the end of this presentation so that you can stay in touch and reach out to us directly, and we will certainly do our best to respond to you.
And maybe just to throw this out there, if people have to drop early, the email address is ndm, as in DeKalb Mall, at Edens, EDENS, as you see on your screen, .com. ndm at edens.com, if you want to jot that down. If you get a thought tomorrow, over the next couple of days, whatever, just to throw that out there in case someone has to drop early.
Perfect. And before I turn things over to Herbert, let me mention one last thing. The plans we're going to show you tonight are detailed, but I want you to understand that we're not created in a vacuum. We have been meeting on this project for months, and we've been meeting with the heads of the neighborhood associations where a number of the participants live. We've been meeting with the CAB planning staff. We've been meeting with your elected officials, and we've also been meeting with some outside consultants that DeKalb County's brought in to identify and address potential issues. And certainly this months-long process has informed the plans you're going to see tonight, and we hope for the better. With that, let me reintroduce Herbert Ames. I'm going to turn things over to him and ask him to tell you a little bit about Eden's and the proposal for the DeKalb Mall site.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. And thank you all for joining tonight. And hopefully everybody can hear and see and participate in this very impersonal event. And this is not how we like to go about things, but as Dan alluded to, it's kind of where we are right now. But very excited to be here. Real quick on Eden's, we are a national owner and developer of retail and mixed-use places across the country. We have a footprint from Boston to Miami. We're not able to move forward here. There we go. Keep going. All right. We have a footprint. We'll back up one. We're going to get this right. This is one of those awkward moments that Dan was just alluding to. But, there we go. All right. Who are we? Eden's is a national owner and developer of retail and mixed-use places across the country. Our portfolio extends from Boston to Miami to Texas and into Colorado. We own 110 places across 9 major markets within that footprint, backed by 3 institutional investors, and our team is 215 strong. And here in Atlanta, we have 13 team members. At Eden's, we talk about our purpose a lot. It is something that we all believe in. It's ingrained in our culture, and that is to enrich community through human engagement. This is why we get out of bed every day. This is ingrained from the top down. This is what we do. We design our places to achieve 3.5 trips per week with 5 hours of dwell time on average. We know that when people come together, they feel part of something that's much larger than themselves. From there, prosperity follows, both economically, socially, culturally, and soulfully. And our work, we truly believe that our work is larger than just real estate. We're in the business of humanity, and that's something that we truly believe top down, and hopefully that shows in our projects and our places across the country. Here in Atlanta, as I mentioned, we are local. We have 13 team members here in Atlanta. I have been with Eden's in Atlanta for almost 8 years with my family. We have 11 places across Metro Atlanta, about 1.5 million gross leasable square foot or retail square footage, however you want to say that. So we are here. We're ingrained in the community in all aspects of the community here in Atlanta. I'm going to show you guys some images of some things. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Marguerite. Of some other projects that we've done. These are all our projects. These are all images from our projects. I'm going to hit these relatively quickly because we've got a lot to cover tonight, but I would encourage you all to check out our website, edens.com. There's a tremendous amount of information there on a host of things, and I'll probably reference that a few times tonight for some other things, but feel free to check that out. First, let's go to Boston to start. This is a project there just outside of downtown Boston in the South Bay area. Big AMC movie theater there in a mixed use environment with upwards of 1,100 multifamily units. Keep going down. Moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, this is a project completed right at the outset of COVID. 115,000 square feet of retail right there in the south end of Charlotte along the rail trail. Moving on to Washington, D.C. Two examples here, which are very telling of what we do. This is the First Union Market District. This is spread out over a 40-acre district in Northeast D.C., adjacent to Gallaudet University, featuring two food halls at both Union Market and La Cosecha, which is a Latin American themed, influenced, inspired market there in the district. That we're very excited about. You can go to that next slide. There's a few more images from Union Market. And on to Mosaic here. Mosaic also in DC, Northern Virginia. Mosaic was a completely ground up project completed over the course of 5 or 6 years from roughly 2011 to 2015 or so. Mosaic, this is an image of Strawberry Park here in the top right, which is our signature open space there with a coffee shop right there in the middle. This project was developed across 35 acres of what used to be a standalone movie theater. Shifting here to Atlanta, two things just to bring your attention to, and I'm not going to highlight the entire portfolio. Sorry, and there is an image of the site plan there with our retail street in Mosaic. Two things here in Atlanta, real quick. West Village, we've assembled roughly 150,000 square feet of retail in the West Village district of Buckhead. Hopefully, most of you have probably been to Henri's Bakery at some point over the last 98 or 99 years of their existence, but maybe you've visited their new home at Andrews Square. We were able to reinvigorate Andrews Square with some of the best local retail in the Buckhead market right there in Buckhead. And then hopefully most of you are also familiar with Toco Hill. Toco Hill or Hills, depending on which side of the fence you sit on there, is a ongoing project for us that dates back to 2005 with our acquisition of the public side. And then most recently, within the last 4 or 5 years, we acquired the rest of the frontage along North Druid Hills, bringing in a green space, a central green space, a splash pad, all centered around what is an exact replica there of the original Toco Hills totem sign that sat out at North Druid Hills for many, many years. From a sustainability standpoint, there's two things I want to hit here: sustainability and design. Sustainability is something at Edens we take very seriously from the top down. We recently undertook a goal of making all of our controlled common area spaces carbon neutral, and I'm pleased to announce that we have achieved that goal and using that to build on other goals throughout what we do here every day. Our sustainability report is actually on the website. I'd encourage you to guys peruse that and take a look at the other initiatives that we have. And specifically as we think about North DeKalb Mall, which is obviously a very significant project for the region, that's one of the most sustainable things we can do. We can redevelop these outmoded places that are already existing. I don't think there's a shred of energy efficiency in that building to speak of at this point. So we're looking to places like that to bring sustainability to the forefront. And also mixed-use projects also definitely are a significant way to be sustainable in reducing vehicle miles traveled. Design, this is just a great quote, but and you can go into our next slide. Our design is a process, and design and good design is at the top end of what we do. Bill Caldwell, who is on the call, leads our construction and design team. He led RTKL's urban design studio for the country prior to coming to us some 12 or 15 years ago. He's ingrained that into us from the top down, and it starts with good design. And there's a process to that, which we're going to touch on here in just a second. I will tell you that we used to think about our places as being these third places, this place where outside of the home and the office, we want you to come spend your time, that notion of a third place. It seems like the last 2 years have really blended that line in a significant way. And that's why good design matters. We have to be thinking about where things are headed, where things are going, how things are impacting us. And that's becoming evident as this plan has come to fruition here over the last couple of months. I'm gonna let Dan, if you want to hit just maybe the next slide real quick on the comp plan, just to give you a little basis in that.
Yeah, let me take a second to hit a few questions here, because as we talk about the comp plan, we're going to start to transition a little bit more into the project itself. So let me just touch on a few of these questions. There was a question about the number of attendees at this meeting. There are 189 participants, including the 8 or so here on behalf of Edens. There was a question about the sign-in sheets. We have to submit a sign-in sheet for a pre-application meeting such as this. How are we demonstrating who participated from the public here? We're actually capturing those who signed in periodically during the course of this presentation, so we could submit those with the application. Obviously, that's a public record and will be available to everyone, and I'm happy to share it with you as well if you want to reach out to me. Could you please go over the key project team members again? So let me hit that again. Of course, Herbert Ames, who just spoke, runs the Southeast region for Edens. Jim McKinney, who I see at least on my Zoom screen, is the Vice President in charge of construction. Bill Caldwell is the architect and leads the design and construction team, and Marguerite Norton, who I introduced earlier, is development associate. Kimberly Horn is doing the civil engineering here, as well as the traffic study. Alex Hensley and Emily Flood are here from that company as well. So those are essentially the key team members, at least here on this call. There are some other people that may be involved in the project later on, but those are the folks who we deal with day in and day out. Randy, I can't read your last name. Randy has a question. Local history issue, Toco Hill versus Toco Hills. It makes a difference to locals who've been in the area for a time. Randy, I am a native Atlantan myself. I understand the distinction you're making. That's one very few people pick up on, and I catch myself getting hung up on Toco Hill versus Toco Hills too. But
the history of the sign says Toco Hill. I think our website combines our two particular properties and combines them into the Toco Hills shopping center. But it is certainly an interesting debate from some people. But the original sign did say Toco Hill, so that's what we stick with.
So let me turn to the comp plan now, which is a slide you see on your screen. This is an area where Edens started when trying to understand what the possibilities were here at North DeKalb Mall. For those who don't know, there's a distinction between zoning districts and a comprehensive plan. Zoning tells you what you can do on a property right now. A comp plan is a forward-looking document. In the case of DeKalb County, it's a projection for what the county wants to see in an area as it develops over the next 20 to 25 years. And importantly, the comp plan is created with input from the public. So it's not just what the planners of the county want to see, it's what the people who live in DeKalb County want to see as an area develops over time. This area in which North DeKalb Mall is located is designated as a town center. And so that's one of the highest districts. It allows the highest density, or some of the highest density, some of the highest intensity, the taller buildings, and the uses that generate a lot of traffic. So there are certain goals that the town center area is designed to accomplish. And if you look at the screen in front of you now, you'll see a list of those goals. These are verbatim out of the comprehensive plan of DeKalb County. And we think this development ticks every box. I'm not going to go through them all, but it certainly provides a higher density, which will support a mixed-use development and create a more community-oriented town center. It emphasizes streetscaping, pedestrian enhancements, open space and linkages, transitional buffers, all things we'll talk about as we move through the evening. So this process was informed with DeKalb County's comprehensive plan in mind, and everything we've done sort of started with the considerations the community said they wanted to see in this particular area.
One of the other things that we look at when we're studying a project like this on the outset is the history of what was this place, what was this neighborhood, what are the components that make this place unique. While North DeKalb, you can go to that next slide. While North DeKalb may have seen its better days, there is a rich history here of community, of entertainment, of commerce that's been conducted here for 50 plus years here at the DeKalb Mall. So it was developed in 1965. It was the first fully air-conditioned mall in the Atlanta region, Atlanta metro region, excuse me. And we've heard so many great stories over the last couple of months from folks and neighbors that have this association with the mall and these memories that they've spent here over the years, which is always just a ton of fun to hear. It's really that legacy of community, and we talk about community a lot, but that legacy of community that we look to build on here as we think about the next 50 to 60 to 70 years going forward. I don't think, you can go to the next slide. I don't think that we need to show you guys kind of what's going on here and what the site looks like today, but here's a couple of images of that get you oriented at where we are today. As Jen mentioned, we've been working with the neighbors of the Cross Neighbors Association, as well as some consultants on behalf of the county commissioners. And that's been a tremendous process, and a lot of that feedback is hopefully all of that feedback has been integrated into this plan, as you'll see. And it's been very helping us get here. And one thing I will say is that's taken a lot of time from your neighbors that have been represented there. It is very, very obvious that they care very strongly about your neighborhood and your community. And that's awesome. It's so awesome to see. It's been great to engage with them. And we appreciate them taking time out of their schedules to do that and be a part of this. And you tonight as well, of course. But as we go through this process, we start to pull together some precedent images of things that excite us and things that or should be inspiration here. I'm going to hit this kind of quickly as we move, but these are images that some are our properties and some are not. Some are inspirational things, but some, just to give you an idea that as we go through this, these images start to form some of these strategic design decisions that we've made throughout. And some of these things are going to continue to be developed as we move forward. But you can keep going. So just to give you a little sense of how some of this started to evolve into this design process that we mentioned earlier. Street types, these are some of the green spaces that we feel like are relevant, some of the connective points in between some of the parking, open space, plazas. What are we going to do in these plazas? Dog parks. We're going to talk about a dog park here a little bit too. Keep going. Outdoor dining, obviously, will be a big piece. These are actually all our properties here. Programming and events. How do we program our green spaces? How do they interact? What are the functions that they need to serve? All of those things have been taken into consideration. Art opportunities throughout, whether they're murals, whether they're sculpture, other things. Storefronts are critical. Unique and individualized storefronts, whether that takes the shape of signage, lighting, paint, how you treat the outdoor, all of that has been top of mind for us. And so, what I would say is to do all of that process and all the planning and conversations and sketching through all this plan starts to emerge and this vision starts to really crystallize. And we transition into the site plan here, and that started to crystallize itself into this walkable retail district. It's an extension of the existing neighborhood. It's an intentional retail environment, entertainment components, soft good, restaurants, health and wellness, but also a balance with basic needs and services. A place that features a series of interconnected green spaces, serving a hierarchy of varying needs throughout, but is ultimately highlighted by the larger connectivity to the future path connection to Medlock Park and to the horse farm and onward to Emory University. It's a place that people can get out of their car and really spend some time, that dwell time that we mentioned. A variety of housing options throughout the site, from fee simple townhomes to floor-head multifamily. This ensures that this will be a place that will be multi-generational, and that's very important to us as well. Boutique office and hospitality will further that vision of being a true neighborhood. Those are also important components to this place. Preservation of key attributes already existing here. The North DeKalb Mall Community Garden has a great story, a great community place that serves a very, very unique purpose. The 20 acres of the creek bed, the South Fork Peachtree Creek, as we nestle upon the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve. These are all elements of these places this place that should be preserved and enhanced, and we're excited about that. So here is the plan. You guys have seen a little bit of this, maybe teased out. This may not be exactly what was teased out in the media. I want to highlight a few points here. District Avenue, go back one up real quick. Go back to the previous slide. There we go. So District Avenue, or Retail Road A, as we're calling it right now, these names are a little bit fluid. That is really, that's the heart of the project. That is the retail zone. That is the pedestrian zone. That is anchored by Lemon Park. Right there in front of what you're seeing there is Block C. That is where the energy will be focused. That is really the heart and soul of the project in those couple of blocks, and it will be designed accordingly. We are leaving a portion of the mall intact, which is largely Block C that you see there. That is currently where the AMC movie theater exists. There on that portion of the site, we're working with AMC theaters now to ensure their long-term presence here at the project. The proposed trail has been a big topic of conversation, something we're very excited about. You can see a future trail down in the lower 20 acres or so. The trail actually will enter the site right there, roughly where that cursor is moving around in what we're calling Promenade Park. It will continue eastward and traverse across and up over to Mistletoe at the top end of the site. We do have an opportunity for that trail to dump you right off into Wild Hunting Park, just to the south, and ultimately right into our retail district as you enter into Lemon Park. So multiple ways to get to the site from the trail connection. And one other note that I would like to point out just on the plan while we're here, and we'll certainly come back to this if there are questions. We did place the townhome portion up on the western edge of the site. There is a buffer that's over there as well, which you see in the green there. That townhome component being placed there was very intentional and very much a desire of the neighbors that we spoke with along Latham Road and representing that neighborhood. The retail activation is obviously a very important piece for us. Will be the next slide. This will show you just how these buildings actually face. They are intended to face the retail street, being District Avenue, as well as Market Street going north to south there. This will show you kind of how we're engaging with the retail throughout the project. Open space, we have an open space plan that starts to show you this hierarchy of open space. Throughout the project, there is you can see here throughout the project, a lot more open space than what maybe exists there on the site today, and how those are all connected. There's places for active use, there's space for passive green space, there's programmable, green space, and of course the trail, and of course the garden becomes a huge component of that and being able to utilize that, as well as the conservation areas. Getting to and through the site is also very important, and we've highlighted this in the connectivity plan, which is this slide here. This starts to orient you into the hierarchy of these roads and streets as they come into the site and how they're treated within the site, as well as the future trail connection, as well as pedestrian connections to the exterior of the site and to the major rights of way there. So this will give you a feel for how this is starting to come together in the street, the street sections that we have pulled together throughout this process. So from there, what I would say, let's transition to some renderings of the project. We have a few here from different perspectives. This is Lemon Park. This is the District Avenue Road A to the right, and then you have Oak Tree and right there in the foreground, just below that jewel box building there. This is the heart and soul of the project. You can see this is tying back in with the existing mall structure there toward the back corner. And we've surrounded this area with retail and inviting places. The programming, the children's activities, et cetera, are all still in high level phase of being worked out now. But we can see this place being very active throughout the course of the year. We are designing this portion of District Avenue to be a curbless section. So this portion, depending on whatever the event may be, would be able to close off District Avenue and expand that event into the street and have a street fair, a carnival, Halloween, whatever that case may be. We have a great events and programming team that will help us on that. Let's head to the next one. Another shot in this image of Lemon Park. This is actually looking back toward the east. It gives you a feel for how that space is being thought about right now. Little umbrella there in the back is a little children's moment, kids moment there as you're sitting outside the restaurant overlooking the park. You've got this all of these different things that are happening here. Let's go to the next slide. I was taking it in a more residential place within the site. This is actually the hotel or office building here on the left. And then you've got some residential there in the distance. This is the trail coming through the site. This is designed to be a dog park here on the right side, which we're excited about. Let's go to the next one. There it is. Another shot of that same general area, just showing you some of the active and passive spaces there through within the site. This is the trail. In that top left corner, you can see where Birch Road comes down, and we cross over into Promenade Park, which sits in between the rows of townhomes. And that actually is the connection into the lower site and the eventual trail that will connect over to Medlock Park and onward. One more. This is Promenade Park. This is bounded by the townhomes here, creating a very, very nice setting here as you transition over and into the lower site and the trail. This is how that's coming together now. And then the next image is going to show you what you will see as you come out of the trail, as you come out of the lower site. This is be the entrance end. This is where I referenced a few minutes ago. You'll be able to take this right here and dip right into the retail district down through Wild Honey Park. To the right, but the main trail will continue forward and on to Mistletoe and up to North Druid Hills. Let's keep going. Sorry, guys, it's a little slow. Looking up from, this is the trail looking up from Wild Honey Park, townhomes on the right, open space on the left, just showing how that will feel and look as we transition there. Let's keep going. This is the retail entry plaza as you come in off Mistletoe. Don't get too attached to that mural, but it's certainly representative of something that can be there in a powerful way to show you that you're entering into a special place. This is as you come off of Mistletoe from North Druid Hills, entry plaza, engaging on this side of the building, so that you're entering in something here. And then the next slide is actually another image of that, maybe more so from a car level, as you see here coming in. Just again, noting this would be the trail coming through along up to Mistletoe. But again, just denoting that you're entering into a unique place, a place that's different, a place that's inviting as you come into the project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. We're going to hit just to tidy up with a timeline here with Den, and then we can transition over to maybe some questions. So with that, I'm going to grab another water.
Yeah, thank you. There have been a lot of plans for this property over the years. I've actually been involved in several of them, and I hope you can see through those images we just went through why we're so excited about this. I mean, Edens has really thought about every aspect of this development and certainly considered input from a significant number of stakeholders who've been involved with this property for a very long time. So it's exciting to me to see. In terms of the process, the property is zoned C1 now. So we need to rezone it for a mixed use development. We've settled on the MU4 category. The plan is to file for a rezoning tomorrow. On that path, we would go to Community Council in April, we'd go to the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners in May. Now, I will note that this development qualifies as a development of regional impact. So it goes through an extra level of scrutiny. It will be reviewed by the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, and that is a separate process that runs concurrent with the rezoning, but it could take a little bit longer. So it's possible we might get off track slightly, but at this point, we're filing in February. We hope to be towards a final vote with the Board of Commissioners at the end of May. This might be a good time to stop and check on the questions here. We seem to have gotten quite a few since I last checked.
I'll take the first. Somebody asked me if I'd spent any time at the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve, and actually I have. And I take my kids over there. We don't live on this side of town, but had a great afternoon there. They just completed their Halloween event, which my understanding is a must do. And we will be back for that. But what a great place! What a great just amenity to the community, and we want to do everything we can to support that and be a part of that going forward.
And as has been said several times tonight, we've had meetings with this Cross Neighborhoods Committee, which is not only made up of representatives from the neighborhoods around the development, but also with the representative from the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve. So he's been involved in conversations and planning for this project from the very beginning. Let me ask you this. There's a question about the Emory shuttle leaving from North DeKalb Mall. It's been a great asset. Would you consider keeping that option? The answer is yes. There's a lot to discuss as we work through the process, but that is an issue that's been raised before and something we certainly continue to consider and look at as we move on down the road.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we've had several conversations at this point, just at a high level. So they're in the loop as to what it is that we're thinking about over here, and how that ultimately takes shape is yet to be determined. But partnering loosely, I guess, would be the right way to say it. But having a relationship with Emory, I think, is paramount to this project, and they're such a big influence in this neighborhood. We're actually absolutely talking to them at this stage.
There's a question about the AMC movie theater. Will it be torn down? And the answer is no. So that portion of the mall, as Herbert mentioned, will be preserved. It will be reduced in size slightly. But if you go back to the site plan, I'll show it to you in the southwest corner of the site. But AMC, which we've heard loud and clear, everybody loves, will continue to be a part of this process in essentially the same space. You can actually see at the back of Lemon Park there, it will have a new entrance off of the park from the outside, but essentially the theater will remain. That's certainly the loud and clear request of most people who live in that area.
So there's still a lot of details to work out with that as where we are in the stage of the game here, but it is our intent to make sure that AMC has a long-term home here in this project.
Let's see. There's a question about traffic. Are you already working with county and the state regarding this issue? The answer is yes. As I mentioned a second ago, we are going through the development of regional impact process. Really, one of the primary emphases of that process is traffic. We've already had a preliminary meeting with the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority to talk about a traffic study and the scope of that traffic study, what intersections will be studied, and we're certainly have a ways to go on that process, but there will be no intersection in immediate proximity to this development that will not be considered. There will be no traffic impact that will not be considered. And to the extent that Greta makes recommendations for improvements that we need to make as a result of this development, those will be made. Let's see.
Let me just take a stab at this retail. There's somebody asked a question about retail and restaurants.
All right.
The local nature of that. And what I would tell you there about our approach is that it's the local retailer, the local restaurateur, the guy or the woman that knows your name. That's how you establish place. That's how you establish loyalty to places. That is a big component of what we do, and some of the special sauce that we call it of creating a good place does have a meaningful local and regional presence, and that's paramount. That would be paramount here as well. There's no question about it. I mean, you should go back to the pandemic. There wasn't anybody with a GoFundMe page for some of these national retailers. There were GoFundMe pages for that special retailer or restaurant that you and your family love, and that's the special piece of what we do in retailing and restaurants, just kind of generally speaking. So that's our approach to it. It's hard to say what the number will be or what the square footage will be, but that's our approach. That's our approach to creating unique and different places that are reflective of our communities. If you look at Toco Hills, I mean, gosh, 80% of the tenants there by number are local or regional in ownership, and that's important. And that's something that you see across our portfolio. There will be national retailers here. There's no question. But the local piece is very important to us. It will be It'll be a big part of this leasing going forward.
All right, there's several questions about workforce housing. Will that be incorporated in this development? The answer is yes. The shape that takes, the metrics are still to be determined, but there will be a workforce housing component to this development. Let's see. What is the path connecting to? So if you go back to this image here, you'll see through the existing 20 or so acres of green west of the development, the Path Foundation and DeKalb County have a plan to bring that path in essentially a north-south direction down to Lawrenceville Highway. Edens has provided a connection for that path when it's built through its property up to Mistletoe. And the portion of that path that is on this site, on the North DeKalb Mall site, will be built. It'll take some time for the Path Foundation trail to be built. But again, I know that Commissioner Rader's office has been in conversations with the Path Foundation about planning and timing, and that's a detail we'll continue to work through as we move through the process. Let's see here. Sorry, I've got a lot of questions here, and some of these are kind of the same thing. I'm trying to make sure we don't double up. Someone asked about sort of the metrics in terms of square footages. So the proposal is for 1,800 units total. That'll be a combination of apartments and townhomes. And it's important to emphasize that Edens is a long-term holder. They're going to acquire this property, they're going to develop the property, they're going to own, operate, and manage it for the long term. The residential units will be phased in over a roughly 8 to 10 year period. So those units will come in incrementally over that time frame. In terms of other square footages, we've got roughly 320,000 square feet of retail proposed, 150 room hotel, and 180,000 square feet of office. Let's see. Will the residential buildings have their own?
In that note on the retail square footage, that does include the roughly 90,000 or so square feet of the existing mall.
Correct. Thank you. Would the residential buildings have their own underground parking, or would they compete with shoppers for on-street parking? The residential units will have structured parking. So essentially, those multifamily buildings wrap a parking deck. It looks like all electrical and phone services buried as a plan. Is that the plan, or just a simplification of the images?
No, there will be no above ground utility throughout the project from a utility standpoint.
Let's see. Will you address parking both for residents and for visitors? Will it be paid parking and permit parking? Thanks. So the parking is a combination of facilities. We've got structured parking, as I just mentioned, surrounding the residential structures. There'll also be some structured parking available to the hotel occupants as well as the office tenants. There's also some surface parking. If you look in the northeast corner of the site, there is a commercial space that could accommodate a grocery store. There is surface parking proposed there and in one or two other places around the site. You'll notice in the southwest corner, so that is sort of the area of the site that's going to be preserved. I mean, there are some tenant obligations there, including with AMC. So at least that portion of the mall will be maintained. That area is surface park now and will continue to be so. There's also going to be parallel parking along the street frontage. It's hard to see on this image, and we will make this available to you guys so you can look at it a little more closely. But there is surface parking, or excuse me, parallel parking up and down a number of these streets. Let's see. Sorry, there's a lot of duplication here, so I'm trying to kind of skip through. Any chance we can have Trader Joe's as a grocery store? No comment. Yeah, it's funny because that has been asked so many times. If there's one thing I know, it's the folks out there are definitely hungry for Trader Joe's.
There are several conversations, just on that note, several conversations on the grocery front. There's also several conversations, lots of conversations going on the retail front. And there's been a lot of activity on that, a lot of interest in that. So we're very excited about those prospects, but it's a little too early to speak specifics about specific retailers.
All right, there's a question about the impact on local schools. Obviously, the school board will be part of the conversation as we move forward. They are directly involved in the review of the zoning application. I'll tell you generally, number one, we certainly limited the number of 3-bedroom units, which is a family-oriented unit. And frankly, there is a lot of data out there that shows that this is not a draw for families with children. There'll be some, for sure. But we've done our own analysis, and I think this can be confirmed by most of the multifamily developers in town. We expect sort of 2 to 4% of the residents of these apartments to have school-age children. So that, assuming that metric works out, that translates to about 60 to 100 kids. And again, that's over an 8 to 10 year build-out time. So there will be some addition to the local schools. We don't expect it to be much, but in any event, as I mentioned, the school board is a part of this process and will be part of the conversation moving forward.
And that was the same general thought process that the county's consultant had with regards to school impact, et cetera, as we were working through the earlier stages of this. So it feels consistent.
Okay. There's a question about the height of the proposed tallest building on site. The tallest building is proposed 8 stories. The tallest building is actually central to this development, so it is away from the perimeter. And as Herbert mentioned, we spent a lot of time orienting the buildings in a way that makes sense for what's in the area now. And certainly the message we heard loud and clear from the folks on Latham and from others in the area was we want the transition from the heights to decrease as you move west. And so we included the 50-foot transitional buffer on the western property line and located the townhomes there so that there is a logical transition into the single family neighborhoods. Let's see. This is the awkwardness I talked about as I have to scroll through these questions because while I appreciate all of them, there's just a lot of duplication here. So I'm trying to look for new information. So there's a question about multi-generational needs. I'm not sure I completely understand this. That same question delves into the issue of affordability. As I mentioned, there will be a workforce component to the multifamily residences proposed. In terms of a multi-generational aspect, I think to some extent, it's providing places for different people in different phases of their life. You know, these types of multifamily developments have a draw primarily for younger folks, you know, single professionals, new couples without children, and older folks who want to change their lifestyle, who want to get out of the single family ranch they lived in and raised a family in and take advantage of amenities that a development like this proposes. So certainly, to the extent we're talking about multi-generational, that's an aspect that we're referring to.
Yeah, and I think and we're having maybe a technical difficulty here with the presentation, so hang with us if y'all can still, hopefully y'all can still hear us.
Yeah, you're good. You guys are still live. It's just the sharing is.
Okay, we're getting back up to share, but I think on that note of multi-generational and how that takes shape here at this project, from the townhomes to the multifamily, but also through the merchandising, again, I think is important, and that this would be a place where a variety of age groups would want to live and be a part of and spend their time. It also plays into the trail system, and that really spreads across generations. It's not just millennials. It's not just empty nesters. I think you're going to have a lot of that. It's going to be kind of barbelled on that end of things, but I think you're going to see a wide variety of folks living here.
All right, there's a question. What is your relationship with the Path Foundation and the Path Development? Again, I mentioned we've met with a variety of stakeholders throughout this process and in the months leading up to this meeting. Okay. The Path Foundation has been at the table. So, we've told them what we can do in terms of bringing the path through the site east towards Mistletoe. We told them we can provide, a location for the path cutting through the green space on the west side of the property. I know that they've been meeting directly with the county to try and firm up plans. And so stay tuned on the Path Foundation. But they've certainly been at the table and part of the process and are well aware of what's going on and what the opportunities are for them here. there be any effort to purchase any of the properties along North Druid Hills that border the development. At this point, the only property that's subject to the rezoning application is the existing North DeKalb Mall site. I'm sure Edens would love to get their hands on some of the properties on North Druid Hills Road, but that has not been an option at this point. We'll see what happens in the future on that. How many townhomes and how many apartments? There are 1,800 units total. The idea is that that number will float a little bit. We'd like the discretion to go up to about 200 townhomes total. If that were to take place, that would mean 1,600 multifamily residential units. But in total, the number of units proposed is 1,800. And again, that will be phased in over an 8 to 10 year period. Let's see. Sorry, I'm seeing a lot of questions I've touched on
Keeps
before.
kicking me off.
Huh.
So I can't jump in here, but
What school district will the kids who live here be assigned? It's my understanding is that it's Laurel Ridge, Druid Hills Middle, and Druid Hills High School. Let's see. The open space and landscaping shown in the model is very impressive. However, I rarely see this actually installed. You're going to see it installed here. So as part of this process, we will agree to a site plan specific zoning so that what you see on the site plan is what's built on this property. You know, things will be built in different phases and over different periods of time, but when this project is completed, exactly what we showed you on the site plan will be built. Let's see.
as Den mentioned earlier, there's a question here about above ground or below ground parking structures. The parking structures that we have would be above ground, but almost entirely they'll be wrapped by residential.
So what happens at Orion Drive and the Wentzville Highway current intersection? Again, we have started the process of a traffic study looking at all the intersections in the area. We'll see whether Greta believes there's an improvement that needs to be made there, and if there is, it will be made. Let's see.
There's a question here on the hotel. Will Edens run the hotel, or will be run by an existing hotel corporation? When we get to that point in the project, we will partner with a first class operator, best in market operator to come in and perform that. That's not something that we typically do, but we do and have a track record of partnering with great operators on that front to make sure that we're getting the right flag and the right use and the right experience there to go along with the project.
There's a question about water retention and detention on the site now versus in the future. Obviously, that's an issue that the engineers have been studying and will continue to study closely. I guess the message there is the situation will be improved. There's no doubt about that. I think I'm gonna have to involve the engineer to go down and dirty with the details there, and I think that's probably an offline conversation. But I know there have been conversations with the county about that already. We're certainly aware of it and what our obligations are, and the message we've received is that the situation will be vastly improved over what's there now. Let's see.
DoorDash and other food delivery services are wildly popular. There are accommodations for their access to restaurants, so they aren't causing disruptions with parking. Whoever asked that, Eric, that is a phenomenal question. It's something that we are dealing with across the board. It is something that we're looking at on the front end of these projects now, where we didn't know we had to look at it before. So yeah, with the prevalence of that, that is something we're evaluating along with delivery trucks, Amazon, UPS, everybody else, to ensure that that is a seamless transition. So yeah, great question, and we are thinking about those things today.
There's a question, do you know if the county is looking into improving pedestrian connections to this new development? And the answer is yes. In fact, that's a work in progress, but one of the reasons that the county brought consultants to the table here is so that they could take a 10,000 foot view and focus not just on this development, but sort of the larger area. So I know that that is a consideration on the county. It's front of mind for them, and there will be some considerations made as time moves on. Let's see. Here's another Trader Joe's. Yes. Which specific building will be the 8-story structure?
There's potentially three. That would be the max height, and that would be the three purple buildings right there at the center of the project there, and then out at the Point Building and Lawrenceville Highway.
So there's a question about the stream under the mall, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I know. And I see Jim McKinney on the screen. I know this is an issue he's looked at extensively, so I'm going to turn it over to him to respond to that. But there was information out there that there was a stream under the mall. There's certainly a pipe that runs underneath it. What we've been told, what we found is it's not an active stream. It's basically a dry pipe. And so while I know that Georgia Tech looked at or made some projections on things that could be done, those really aren't feasible. Jim, do you want to add anything to this quote stream that runs underneath the mall?
I mean, I think you captured it. It's what would be called an intermittent stream. So when it rains, water runs through the pipe. We'll actually be relocating that or a portion of that in order to do the development. But it's just going to be a 72-inch pipe, which really isn't a large pipe when you look at, think of a stream, you may think of something big, but this isn't a large drainage area coming to it.
So what part of the project will be first to be developed? Herbert, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, so we're looking to deliver a significant amount of retail up front. That's important to us, and that helps to create this immediate sense of place with that retail footing. So the renovations to Block C around the portions of the mall they'll be retaining, the rebuilding of those parking lots, those are all in pretty rough shape as they sit today. The portion let's go back to Block A, the introduction of a grocery store in the early phase would be a part of this, as well as Block B and the retail there. From there, we also believe that townhomes would go in an earlier phase, and potentially the initial phase. There seems to be a lot of interest in the townhomes, which is very exciting. So those would be the initial phases, with Block D really probably being the block that's phased in down the road over that 7 to 8 to 10 year period.
There's a question about MARTA. MARTA has been at the table. Again, when I talk about the stakeholders have been part of the conversation at various points, MARTA is one of those. We're certainly trying to determine how to accommodate MARTA on this site, and I think there will be an accommodation made as we move through the process. Let's see. Did the plan show 3 hotels? No, there's 1 hotel. There are 3 office buildings.
Well, there's
or potential.
There's three locations. We envisioned 1 hotel, 2 office buildings. We provided for the flexibility to move those around in this particular drawing, so that if a hotel fly wanted to be somewhere else, it was the right place for them, that we can kind of move those around. It's envisioned that we would have 1 hotel up to 150 rooms, and then potentially 2 office buildings of up to 180,000 square feet, as noted there on the chart there.
Is the former Bank of America building included as part of the site development? No, it's not.
It's not.
Would Edens consider increasing the total green space on the site? Everything's on the table. We're certainly looking at everything all the time. I think the reality is that we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 25% green space when the county requires 10%. We're significantly over what the ordinance would require, and we've tried to be intentional about it in creating spaces that work together and are coordinated together and sort of are sprinkled throughout the site. The great benefit here is we have about 20 acres on the west side that we've also tried to incorporate as a passive space.
Our open space calculation should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25% at the end of the day there. So,
will you let us know if more meetings will be scheduled in the future? Absolutely. One of the things I think we'd like to do is stay in touch. We have a great opportunity here, in that we've got this cross neighborhoods committee that we've been communicating through, who have a direct line to communications with you, and we're happy to schedule meetings as the community sees fit to dig into some of these issues. Again, there are a lot of questions coming. There aren't a lot of answers because we've been looking at this thing big picture, but as we continue to drill down, some of the more specific details like stormwater, wetlands impacts, things of that nature will be more defined, and we'll be happy to have follow-up meetings to discuss those or really any other issues you want. I've got a couple questions about the post office.
Yeah, and post office is a great use. We actually have several properties with post office locations throughout our portfolio. They have a short-term lease here. We would love to try to accommodate them down the road, but I can't really speak much more than that right now.
Do the density calculations include the non-buildable land? They do in a way. We really don't need that area for the density calculations for what we're proposing, but we want to rezone it. It's important that we actually include all the property in this rezoning application. The green area you see on the west side is actually zoned commercial now. And the only way to ensure that the DeKalb Mall site is developed the way that we're proposing it, and the green space to the west is improved in the way we're proposing it, is to put it all in and have one site plan for the entire property approved. Let's see. Will the pathways in the green and nature spaces be in the final phase or earlier?
As much as possible in the early phase on the upper project. In terms of the lower site, the open space down below, and the future connectivity that's to be built by others with collaboration with us. We're not sure of the timing of that just yet, but we are working with the county and the Path Foundation on that piece. We are going to put in as much of the trail as early as we can. That's important to us. It may take the form of a temporary trail. If there's another phase coming in on top of that, then we can kind of rework until it's ready to go in its permanent state. But it's important for us to get that connectivity in sooner the better for us, from our perspective.
There are a lot of questions about sort of what sustainable elements will be added to the project. I know there'll be EV charging stations and things of that nature. Again, that's a work in progress, but as you heard Herbert say in the very beginning, sustainability is a foundational issue for Edens. They've taken a corporate stance on their other developments. It will certainly be an important part of this project too. And as we move through this process, I think we'll be able to get a little more specific on that. Another question about traffic studies. Again, we've just started this process. We have met with the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority to start to flesh out the scope of a traffic study. There will be a traffic study for not just this property, but the intersections around it. And that will be something we continue to work on. It will be filed as part of this application and available to everyone for their review.
I just want to go back real quick, because somebody asked a question about the density, or maybe we're using the 20 acres or 18 acres or whatever it is down below as part of our zoning application. And there is the importance of rezoning it. But in terms of the comp plan, if you include that acreage, the density that's called for on the site is actually 4,400 units, which is 60 units per acre. If you don't include that land, it's about 3,200. So it is a reduction. And as Den mentioned, we're in 1,800 range. So very, very different than what we're certainly not maxing out the request here on that front, but it is worth noting that there is a difference, but it's really an inconsequential difference in terms of the zoning application, how it relates to what we're putting forward here tonight.
There have been several questions about how can we get more information about the presentation tonight and other aspects of the project. Again, Herbert gave an email address at the beginning of this presentation. We'll put it up here at the end, and we're happy to take questions. We're happy to provide information that people would like to see. As I've said a couple of times, we want to stay in touch on this. I mean, this is a project that touches a lot of people. There's been a lot of work done so far. There's going to be a lot of work to do moving forward, and we want to keep people abreast of what's happening.
Nancy asked about a new name, and we can definitively say there will be a new name. We don't know what that is yet. We've been kicking around some stuff. We'd love some input from you guys. If you guys have some thoughts on that, email us to that email address. Yeah, we definitely, we're definitely taking those steps.
Someone asked for the email again. We've got a slide we can put up. Herbert, if you want to mention it, we'll
keep going down to the last slide.
There's the email address you see. Again, feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. We've put together a list of folks we can share information with as we move through the process. There's a question is why are traffic studies always done after plans have been drawn? The only way to actually create an effective traffic study is to have your dimensions in place. The traffic engineers need to understand the number of residential units proposed, the retail square footages, the offices square footages, and so on and so forth to model effectively the traffic impact that's going to be proposed. So that is why there has to be some plan in place before a traffic study can be created. I've had this question a couple times. I don't know if Lou, you keep proposing this, but do you anticipate having to clear out local businesses to widen roads? The answer is no. Let's see. Someone asked, when will the site plan be finalized? That is an excellent question. It'll be finalized when the Board of Commissioners votes on it. We have spent an incredible amount of time and taken a lot of input from a lot of people to this point. It doesn't stop when we file the application, right? We are always interested in hearing from folks. We're always interested in considering issues. This site plan will be fine-tuned and refined as we move through the process over the next several months. So it's not going to be finalized until the final vote occurs, and we certainly are interested in hearing from everybody and their thoughts on ways to make this plan better.
There's two questions here I'll hit. What class office space is planned? Elizabeth, it would be Class A. It's, new construction, top of the line construction quality, amenities. Being in a mixed use environment like this would certainly be an amenity. You can take the example of some of the other projects around town where the office has done extraordinarily well. And then somebody also asked about sediment control and erosion, and of course, all of that during construction is very, very top of mind to us, and obviously we'll follow all applicable codes and requirements there. And then same lady, Sydney said, what is the plan for the areas that will be developed in later phases? It's a great question. It's something that's come up quite a few times here. Whether it's used for construction staging, whether it's used for green space or temporary green space, whatever we do there will be appropriate. It will be branded as such. It will be on brand with where we're headed. And in many cases, it will simply be used as construction staging. We do have a lot of different projects that need that, but we'll make sure that it is not an eyesore. It is fenced and screened appropriately if that's what it's used for. And if we can use it for other things in the interim, we absolutely will do that.
I just got kicked off here. Let me.
Yeah.
The questions were slowing, so we may have gotten near the end of that, but let me try to relaunch this Zoom meeting.
Somebody asked a great question, Holly. We could really use nice dining and shopping options in this area. How will retailers be selected to bring new options and varieties to the area? And that's really at the core of what we do. We have an in-house leasing team that's based here in Atlanta. They source these people, these entrepreneurs, these restaurateurs, these retailers out. And we vet them, we vet their business plans, we make sure they're viable as much as we possibly can. And that's how that gets done. So that is at the core of what we do, but that's a great question.
Let me look over your shoulder here. Yeah. It's another one of those awkward moments I talked about. We're having connectivity issues here. There we go.
Back on?
All right, there we go. Thank you. Here's a question about engaging the county to provide safe passage into the town center. I know that is an issue for the county. I don't know exactly the method that they're proposing, but again, Commissioner Rader has brought in Perkins and Will and some other consultants who have taken a 10,000-foot view of not just this development, but the areas around it to figure out how they can be integrated appropriately and how the folks across Lawrenceville Highway or North Druid Hills Road can take advantage of this development. So stay tuned on that. I know that your elected officials are working hard to try and satisfy that issue. Will you be able to bike through the mall area during construction to get from the public's residential side to the residential area on the quick trip side? My understanding is that the roads will be one of the first things to go in. So I believe that would be a possibility. The path connection we were talking about, essentially the bike path, pedestrian path that will connect to the green space to the west, actually doesn't travel in that direction. It travels west to east up Mistletoe to North Druid Hills Road. Please answer my questions about dispute with Golden Corral parking. I didn't see that question, so I'm gonna have to go scroll back and try and see if I can find that. Here's a comment. I'm sad to see the mall go, but it's time for a new project. I think that is the understatement of the year. A lot of people have tried to make something happen here for various reasons. It hasn't, but I'm pleased to say that Edens is, I think, the right developer for the right time, and certainly approaches in a very deliberate fashion.
With regard to the artist question, how do we decide which artist will be used? It comes from a variety of places, but a lot of times it comes just from either community members, relationships with existing artists, or through other means, people reaching out. Sometimes we've done a little bit more orchestrated plans to bring folks in. So we're not sure yet, I guess is the real answer, and how we're going to source those. But if you have a recommendation, we'd love to talk to you.
So will you be advocating to increase traffic lights and walkability on North Druid Hills leading to the site? Again, I sort of touched on that. It's in everyone's interest, I think, to increase the pedestrian experience in the area, certainly not just on this property, but around it and to it. And that has been a significant part of the conversations we've had with your elected officials, with their consultants, and that will be a continued focus as we move forward. Let's see. The questions have really slowed here. I'm sure I've skipped a few, but it's hard to manage this number. But a lot of great comments here. Good luck, Edens. It's time for this development, things of that nature. But in terms of questions itself, let me see.
Rosemary asked about other Edens developments nearby. I would recommend go have a cup of coffee at Spiller Park over at Toco Hills. Very different type of project, and obviously what we're talking about here, but certainly will give you a little bit of a feel for how we approach things.
All right, here's a question about sort of timing. We talked a little bit about the timing for the entitlement process. Herbert, we have a slide that shows this. You want to touch a little bit on sort of development timing?
Yeah, so we, as Din mentioned a little bit earlier, we are looking to move into the official zoning phase here this week, which will be the conclusion of this meeting here tonight. That's not to say that we haven't been hard at work on this through the DRI process and all the other engagement that we've been working on here over the past, 6 months or so. We've been at it here before closing and after closing. So so that's really kind of where we're headed. We are looking to start construction ideally with some of the utility and the portions of the mall to come down in the first part of next year. And then the initial phases would begin to come online in Q1 of 2025. That's not to say some of the renovated portions of the mall wouldn't, is our intent that all of that would remain open during construction. And certainly our goal, and would be fully complete before that date, but a first new construction coming online in Q1. And then again, depending on how things go, we do see a extended time frame here, 8 or so years, 8 to 10 years is kind of the horizon of this project, a full build out to allow for all this to phase in appropriately. And again, that could slide up a little bit if things go well, or slow down a touch if things slow down. So, but just to give you a feel, we are trying to create as much of that retail place here on the front end. That's very important to us, as we alluded to earlier, and keep this process moving. So.
There's a question about the DeKalb commissioners who've been involved in this process. As I mentioned, Commissioner Rader's been heavily involved from the very beginning, as well as Commissioner Ted Terry. So they've been great advocates for the neighborhood. Obviously, both know this area well. Both have been aware of other development plans and issues that neighbors have raised surrounding them, and they have been very deliberate in making sure that those issues are considered. And we've appreciated their involvement, and we'll continue to appreciate their involvement as we move forward. Let's see. Here's a recommendation for a coffee shop.
Spiller Park is local though. Dale is here in Atlanta, but we would certainly love to talk to Atlanta coffee roasters for sure. And there's a lot of questions that appears on the Chick-fil-A. We obviously are aware of the ongoing matter zoning proposal on the Chick-fil-A. It's our understanding that the county wanted to really understand all of this holistically. But that's really probably as much as we need to speak to.
Let's see, there are a lot of comments here. Very positive. We certainly appreciate that support. Let me see if there are any other questions here that we missed. I think that's pretty much it. We seem to have sort of really slowed down on the questioning here, but again, we want to stay in touch. You know, we are available to answer questions as we move forward in the next weeks and months. You've got the email address. Absolutely, positively feel free to reach out through that vehicle. Most of you, I think, should have my contact information as well. I've already had a lot of questions and emails from folks who are excited about this development. I've had an opportunity to talk to them on the phone and certainly explain some of the details of the development, and I look forward to doing that as we move forward. Let's see. I think that's probably about it. We're just getting a lot of, you know, this is so overdue. Thank you. Thank you for hosting the meeting. We're excited. So it's mostly comments at this point, but again, this is sort of like feeding information through a fire hose. It's hard to show a site plan that, you know, encompasses 73.11 acres and really dig down into the details. So as we continue to move forward, there's going to be a lot more information that we'll be sharing. You know, I encourage you to, in addition to reaching out, participating in the public process, as we meet with the community through the hearings, we'll be providing more information. And certainly, as I mentioned, working to gain your support to address the issues that you've raised and to make this a win-win for everybody. So
yeah, please, just second that. Please reach out via the email address if you feel like your questions weren't answered tonight. We will do our best to respond to each of you, and we look forward to being a part of this conversation and working with you guys in the community here going forward. And to that, just thank you for your time tonight very much.
thank you. And we will see you guys as we move down through this process. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Dan at Decatur-ish. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the stream tonight. We heard some interesting information. I'm going to upload this to YouTube tomorrow. It'll be available on Twitch today and tomorrow, and it'll be on YouTube tomorrow. For anybody that is interested, if you are a fan of Decatur-ish, if you appreciate what we do, please go to supportmylocalnews.com and become a paying supporter. We could really use your help to keep doing things like this. I hope everybody has a nice evening. Look for the story tomorrow on Decatur-ish. Bye-bye.